The final boss is not very difficult. As I said, with Shadow Round, it's reasonably easy to beat him. You have to set it up properly. Menacing Stance is another way to defeat it. Menacing Stance is really powerful because of how much damage it does, especially when you do a backstab. Now, the final boss can instant kill one of your daughters in his second phase. So I forgot to show you some of the Suffering's attack, but basically it has an instant kill. After a certain amount of time, your daughter dies. They die instantly. There's no way to cancel it. It doesn't matter how much armor they have. They just die instantly. It's a very cheap attack. I don't know why they have it, but yeah. So the final boss takes turn very quickly and has a skill that does AoE initiative delay. So it can delay all your daughters by 20 initiative units. So having a daughter which has Spirit Burst and with resistance to initiative delay is very important. Otherwise, the boss will keep delaying you down the timeline. And because the boss takes turns very quickly, like every 20 initiative units or 30 initiative units, the final boss takes one turn. If he delays all your daughter by 20 initiative units, so it can take turns again. So you can keep delaying your daughter and keep taking turns. So you can't do anything. So yeah, that's how you defeat the final boss: Shadow Round, Menacing Stance, and Resistance to Initiative Delay. You have to set up Menacing Stance properly, and you have to proc his melee interruption skill, Love. He has an attack which is called a Love, which interrupts your melee attack. So you can see in the fight, I interrupted his melee attack, and he interrupted my melee attack. I use sidestep to gain armor. Then I attack him with a melee attack. I proc this interruption, so the next time I attack him, he cannot interrupt my attack. So I set it up with Menacing Stance. So every time I shot, Shadow Rounds procced 3 times, and then Menacing Stance. So every time I hit the boss, it did like 10,000 damage. And the boss only changes phase once when his HP is below 40%. So you try to get him as close to that 40% mark as possible. It's around 57,000, but I will have it, I would say 56, 57,000, 57,000 just on the safer side. So the first recollection is over. We survived 34 days. We defeated 396 enemies. Elite defeated 200. Most killed enemy is Ravengers, of course. Total number of daughters, 15. We lost 9 daughters. Actually, 2 daughters died in battle, but no daughters lost in the final mission, final boss battle, which is great. Sacrifice daughter 7. Damage dealt, etc., etc. Clemens is here. I guess Clemens is like the MVP, most valuable player, I guess. I don't know what that means. So, and most daughters have a lot of health, like they didn't consume a lot of health in the final boss. The Scythe Dancer is a good unit to bring, a good daughter to bring for the final boss, because she has ability to permanently gain armor in the mission. So the Ordeal, I think it's called Ordeal, this attack, it swaps position with the furthest daughter and does an AoE damage. Doesn't do anything against the Scythe Dancer because how much armor she has. She can continue to gain armor as well. So we can either go to the next recollection or we can quit to the main menu. So if you quit to the main menu and then you load this save file, you automatically go to the next recollection anyway. So yeah, but let's just quit to the main menu. Okay. So if I start a new button, I go play, and I click on this. Even though it says Recollection 2, The Long Nightmare, Day 35, if I click on this, I will go to the second recollection. This is just a separate save file. So if I click on this, this will go to like the next recollection. You guys can have a look. It automatically goes to the next recollection. Yeah. We don't need to see this. Yeah, see, it automatically goes to the next recollection, and you can see all the shards that I have 1,450 out of 1,450. But what we want to see is a codex, and the reason I wanted to do this is because the codex and what we want to have look is not the hope breaker, we saw this before, but the nucleus. Okay? This is about the final boss. The nucleus is barely sentient, but can react to units close to it. If a daughter gets too close, it will teleport away unless it is a corrupted daughter, which it will instead reshape into a hope breaker. Finally, if any corrupted daughter is missing from the map, it will reanimate a new one. Watch out for its infection. It spreads through both daughters and corrupted daughters, dealing massive damage. Among all of the others in the Pantheon, suffering is one of the oldest and the most powerful, invigorated by human pain for millennia. His power and influence have grown to bring him closer to the veil, linked to the child. Suffering gratifies its host with immortality while feeding on his misery. When its chosen one fractured reality, suffering was incarnated as an egg, a nucleus of pure greed that awaits only one thing, to finally exist, the mother. So among the others in the Pantheon, suffering is one of the oldest. So the mother is actually basically the main character in the memories here. In the memories here, this lady, she's also linked with the other, which is memory. The guide is also linked to another, which is curiosity. Keep pressing R1. What I meant to do is press R2.
Remember.
Okay? You can again activate these remembrance, but if you activate the remembrance, you can't use it until the next recollection. But you can activate these remembrance. We are not going to activate any of the remembrance. We haven't activated them before. But if you activate a remembrance, it's persistent throughout the recollection. We are not going to do it, but you guys can have a look at the remembrance if you wish to do so. Let's go through the nucleus and suffering. Suffering is a god incarnate. Most of her skills cannot be avoided and will alternate from turn to turn. After launching a reaction and an interruption, she will change position with the daughter furthest from her, damaging that daughter and any surrounding allies. The skill she chooses to end her turn will alternate. As the battle rages on, daughters will find that death is unavoidable. The only way to win is to win fast. That's what I just said before. Daughters will find death is unavoidable because she has an instant kill attack. She basically targets a daughter, and you have certain amount of turns before that daughter dies. You cannot cancel that attack. You cannot intercept it with saving grace. You cannot intercept with intercepting round or dance of binding. It's impossible to intercept this attack or cancel it. You will just kill one of your daughter, and it's an instant kill. You cannot cancel it, and the only way to basically cancel the attack or avoid the attack is by winning the battle or defeating suffering. Suffering also has huge resistance to initiative delay. I think she has 98% resistance to initiative delay. He or she, so her skills are also difficult to avoid, so it's almost unavoidable. Some of her skill can be intercepted. You did see intercepting round proc. It is possible to intercept some of her attacks, but most of her attacks cannot be intercepted. She also has a reaction and an interception skill, but her reaction pain doesn't seem to work. It does 175 damage, but never seems to work. I don't know how the reaction works. Pain, it doesn't seem to work. Yeah, it doesn't do damage to any of my daughters. So the skill she chooses to end her turn will alternate. Yeah, she also has a AoE initiative delay skill. Really, really annoying. And the suffering, what it doesn't tell you here is she takes turns very, very fast. Much faster than all the other bosses. And has very high resistance to initiative delay. Almost immune to initiative delay. Thus, the abyss creature became a god in our world, a divine being thirsting for torment and painful grace. Suffering had always wanted to taste the exciting banquet of reality, the tempting music of house, and the savor beauty of torture, nourishing by the daughters sacrificed in the fight against the child. Suffering is now ready to reign over reality and shape the world in his own way. Watch the white rose blossom. So the white rose is in the birthing Elysium. You can see that there's a white rose growing, the mother. Okay, what I meant to do is press R2. I need to remember. Press R2, press R2, press R2, rather than R1. Yeah, so you can activate these remembrance. I'm not going to do it at all. Okay, so I think the red mother is the remnant of the mother, right? So the mother died, and what remains is the red mother. So I think maybe the red mother is memory herself. What really happened, I cannot say. We have exchanged our realities, my dear friend. My body is gone, but my spirit follows you. Together we can stop the chosen one of suffering. Sever the link that unites them. I offer you my memories. Shape our daughter and send them to stop suffering before it's too late. I think she's memory. Yeah, we saw all of these. So this is my daughter. Now Bella has become a shield bearer rather than, a blade master. Yeah, we don't have any memories. As you can see, there's no memories. Because it's the beginning of the game. And we have 1,450 shards. We may continue this recollection, but we will continue this another time. So, this is Othercide. Yeah, I really enjoyed the game. I thought it's a great game. There are many aspects of the game that I enjoyed. Let's quit to the main menu. Yeah, the battles are very challenging. The boss battles are very difficult. And sometimes it's very easy to make mistakes. And once you make a mistake, it can snowball out of control. So if you do make a mistake in this game, just stay calm and think about your next move. And think about it carefully. Watch the timeline, and you should be able to win. Othercide is a difficult game, and it's actually very different to XCOM, but it requires you to think many steps ahead. XCOM only you require to think a few steps ahead, but Othercide you need to think like 10-20 steps ahead what you're gonna do. But XCOM is difficult because of decision making and risk and reward. Basically, you take cover, you shoot, and there's a percentage chance you can sometimes you can get lucky. Othercide, because most of the attack is melee and a lot of attacks are unavoidable, the combat is more deterministic. It's less sort of based on luck, and sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions to sacrifice one daughter, or one daughter will take hit. Yeah, certain aspects is similar to XCOM, and the timeline management has some similarity to Star Renegade. Although in Star Renegade, you cannot indefinitely delay an enemy down the timeline. There's only so much you can delay them, but here you can continuously delay enemies, except bosses, obviously. Even though you can't indefinitely delay certain enemies in the game, timeline management, I think, is probably the most important thing in the game. If you can manage your timelines well, you'll be able to have less difficulty in missions as well as in boss battles. There are many other parts of the game which requires decision making. For example, which missions to choose. Should I do the simpler hunt mission now, or should I save this mission later on? Should I do the rescue mission so I can get a bright soul to resurrect a fallen daughter? Which fallen daughter should I resurrect? And which daughter should I bring on, difficult missions? Should I bring all my A team on difficult missions? Should I bring a weaker character so they can level up, right? There are large amount of mission variety, I would say. Ritual missions, survival missions, rescue missions, they're all very, very different. And like in the early game, I would say ritual missions are pretty difficult, but towards the later game, I would say certain ritual missions are relatively easier compared to, let's say, rescue or survival missions. So all these factors sort of count into the difficulty of the game, and you really have to make a lot of decisions. And it is a turn-based strategy game, so you do have time to make decisions. So it's not like a split-second decision. So you have to calculate, okay, this is the best course of action. So in that sense, I very much enjoy the game. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the atmosphere in the game, and the music, the sound effects, which I really like as well. So the game has a fairly gloomy and dark atmosphere. It sort of kind of reminds me of Bloodborne, not just because both game has like a gothic horror genre, but also that like in Othercide, the city or the environment that you're in, the world around you is sort of falling apart because of the plague. You see on the map the quarantine bridge. The bridge is sort of collapsing, or collapsed completely on one side, and you have to fight on the other side of the quarantine bridge to rescue a bright soul to escape, right? So it's a very daunting mission, and you can see the landscape is destroyed, it's falling apart. There's a grotesque creatures, grotesque, like scary looking nightmarish monsters that are sort of chasing after you. And also the fact that you have to like sacrifice one daughter to heal another daughter. You have to sacrifice a bright soul to resurrect a daughter. But even to the point where, the game never really ends when you die. If you can't continue, if all your daughters have perished away, you can always restart a new recollection. So it's like a cycle. It's almost like in Bloodborne, like it's a dream. It's sort of a cycle as well. This also has like a nightmare dream feeling to it. It's a continuous cycle. You die, you rise up again, you restart the recollection, you get power-ups in terms of remembrance, you learn more skills, or you learn better skills, you understand the game a bit more, so you progress a bit further. So if you fail, it doesn't really matter because the cycle continues, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. But even though you beat the game, you can again continue the recollection and continue the cycle. So almost like a cycle of death and rebirth, So in that part it's very interesting. The game also does have this very daunting atmosphere. It sort of fills you with dread. The missions are challenging, as I said before. So this adds to that aspect. It puts you under pressure. You always have to think very well ahead. Like also you need to manage your resources, the amount of vitae, what skill to equip, what memories, all these kind of things adds to the atmosphere of the game. Yes, it is a turn-based strategy game, but it still has many horror elements that makes you that makes you feel uncomfortable when you play it. It's very daunting to play the game. And you can feel the dark and gloomy environment, right? The sort of the city is collapsing, everything's falling apart, but there is hope at the end of the tunnel. So yes, very much enjoy this atmosphere of the game. I think it's very much well done. I really like the music, the sound effects. The game is very interesting and unique. You know, I am a big fan of horror games, but you don't see many turn-based strategy games that has like a horror theme, and I think it's pretty difficult to do to get it, you know, very to get it very well balanced between um, the strategy part, the decision making, the horror part, um, the resource management. It's a very difficult thing to get it balanced. And now finally, I just want to talk a little bit more about the story of the game. So there are a lot of sort of lore in the cutscene, but there's also a lot of story in the game codex. Sometimes it is difficult to tell, you know, what exactly is happening. I think that's because some of the story are not really like explicit. They just tell you through these description of the characters, and the cutscene makes more sense when you read the description of the characters. For example, the cutscene relating to the bosses, relating to the scythe dancer, it makes a bit more sense. So especially with the child, you found out what was happening to him, all these horrible things that had happened to him. It's very sad, especially also what happened to the maid, you know. So the maid tried to help out and save the child, but at the end she passed away, right? And that made the child really, really angry, right? So, and like the corrupted daughters symbolizes a dark side of the story. You know, it's dark. They're being abandoned. They've died on the battlefield, and they're sort of they're angry, right? And they symbolizes basically darkness, right? But at the same time, you have the scythe dancer, right, which symbolizes hope, like symbolizes light, right? And also, all the daughters give, I think, symbolizes vengeance, right? It's like they are taking vengeance against injustice, against, you know, horrible things that has happened. You know, yeah. So very interesting storyline. You have to really read through the codex to get an idea of what's happening. The codex also gives some idea about the enemies and their behavior. For example, how the caretaker, for these are minions in the first boss battle, how they behave. Like they always move towards the surgeon, which is the first boss, right? So once you defeat the boss, you get some idea of how they behave. So that's pretty important. That helps you plan strategy in the future. It's a good way to tell story, or at the same time, it gives you like it's almost like a strategy guide. Gives you a bit more information about the enemy types, right? So, same as the events talk a little bit more about, you know, what is happening to the child, right? And, you know, adrenaline, which gives increasing damage, right? And it also gives you a bit more a story, like obviously they were doing certain things to the child which are very, very horrible, and the child gets angry because he's filled with adrenaline. And the story of the mother as well. So the story of the mother began hundreds of years before the start of the game, in age of shattering 12, 14. So that's hundreds of years, way before the beginning of the game. And you see her grow up as a child. Her village was being burned, and then she grew up and she was rescued by the guide. So I think this is yeah. So this is a guide, um, and the guide took her to Nostra to start her training. Now, each of these words, it sort of describes what are the events. It's sort of like a one-word description of what's happened, like discovery, right? So the guide discovered her. Departure, she's left her village, right? Inferno, like she fled a fire, right? A big inferno, right? And repetition, so she repeated her training, right, with her master. Comfort, so she was like comfortable. She finally able to relax. So yeah, so the title of the memories actually kind of describe the paragraph. It's like a one-word description, right? Now she's cornered, right? So she trained with her master, but her master sort of discovered she was a chosen one. She went into exile. Then she returned to help her master, and then she realized something wasn't right. And unfortunately, she had to kill her master, and she was very remorseful. And in the third chapter, she sort of replaced her master's role as a trainer for Nostra to help them defeat, these dark, these nightmarish creatures, and they sort of went on a crusade, you know, um, and at the same time she met the paladin, which she cared very much about. So they obviously came together, and after that they sort of lived many years. I think in a village we lay on the grass halfway between waking and sleeping, right? So they're very happy together. I'm not sure what happened here. I didn't really understand. When I felt spasms, my body rejecting that within me, I left. Um, I could not bear to tell him we'd lost another. I'm not sure what that means exactly. But eventually, over a long period of time, her lover, the paladin, has passed away. So my paladin smiled, his eyes saw very far away, a sign, and he was gone. I think at this point, or perhaps very much before, she has realized that she does not age anymore. She's almost immortal. Remember, chosen ones, they sort of stop aging, right? They can access their other side from unreality. So there's reality and unreality, and they can access like power from this the unreality side, and they don't age anymore. They sort of become immortal. And I think she also realized the guide, who was always with her, she became the guide was immortal as well, right? So winter, right? So this is again describing the event. It's like winter, everything has died and everything has passed away, and anew. So she everything became new. She sort of decided to set everything on fire and start over again, because she was very lonely, right? Yeah, it's a very sad part of the story, but at the same time, this is again the cycle, like her childhood was sad, but then she found purpose to train to become a warrior. Then she had to defeat her master, but then she took her master's role. She defeated these nightmare creatures. Then she found the person that she obviously fell in love with. Then they passed away. Then she had to start again. This cycle of finding the people that she cares about, that she forms strong bonds with, and letting them go. They either die or are killed. So, and again, she has to start again. And after hundreds and hundreds of years later, she found again newer companions to be with. So again, the guide is always there, teaching her, guiding her. And Nostra, which is the organization she worked for, has become Vostra, which were doing some horrible experiments. They were sort of amalgamating all the chosen one together. They want to open a permanent portal to unreality, and then they want to get rid of unreality. They sort of want to destroy all the creatures in unreality, finish this problem once and for all. And there's a bounty hunter. That was obviously her companion as well, and I think there's someone else with her, the seer, which is also with her, the medium, not seer, but the medium is with her, and together they sort of defeated Vostra. Well, she's gone crazy. She killed, most of the people in Vostra because they were doing something horrible. And then chapter 5, which is a final chapter, sort of this takes time in the very beginning of the game, where she traveled to this distant city where everything is falling apart because there was a plague. So the guide again is with her. So the guide is someone that's always there, sort of in the background, continuing the cycle with her, right? The guide, who was Curiosity, was guiding her, was seeing what's going on, right? And before my departure, the guide has spilled what he didn't know about this suffering on the horizon, right? So then she's traveled to the city and saw what was happening. She tried her best to defeat all these nightmare creatures. Then she realized she was losing her strength, but she regained her strength again, and she found the epicenter, which is the center of what was happening, which was a child. And that's sort of, now we're at the beginning of the game, like her fire was extinguished and she became the Red Mother. However, she managed to create or germinate these daughters which can carry on her missions. So that's kind of the story of Othercide. So yes, the story is kind of sad, but at the same time, it's a cycle that's happening continuously. It's sad, but at the end of the day, there's sort of light at the end of the tunnel. You always can achieve victory if you just continue, right? You're learning, right? I want to see you one last time, my dear friend, just one last time, right? So, that's the end. Her fire is extinguished. But at the same time, she has created something new, like her daughters, which can carry on her missions, her legacy. So it's not the end. It's sort of like it never really ends, right? Again, it's like the game never really ends. The game sort of continues on, even if you're defeated, even if you can't continue, you can always restart a new recollection. So yes, that's pretty much what happened in the game Othercide. And yeah, I hope I explained that well enough. I'm obviously sure that I've missed certain things, but that's sort of what I understand from the story. There are some symbolisms, like the scythe dancer and the hate dancer. They're sort of opposite of each other. The scythe dancer symbolizes hope, justice, while the hate dancer symbolizes darkness and suffering and fear as well. So yes, Anyway, I am not sure if I will continue playing through the second recollection. There are some differences between the first and the second recollection. For example, you can get the Scythe Dancer very much in the beginning of the second recollection, and the Scythe Dancer is actually really, really powerful against the first and the second boss because she can steal armor, and once she gets a certain amount of armor, she becomes really, really, really strong in the battlefield. So the only way to defeat her are armor reduction skills, and the final boss, has the ability to instant kill you. So it doesn't really matter how much armor that you have. But for the first and the second boss, even to some degree the third boss, the Scythe Dancer does become very, very strong. So if you can get her into the battle and if you can steal armor, she becomes really strong. And also you can activate certain remembrances, which are power-ups, to make your daughters strong again. You can also sort of resurrect high-level daughters as well. If you have resurrection tokens, you can resurrect high-level daughters which has fallen in your previous recollection. Even if you succeeded in the previous recollection, your daughters from all your previous recollection would have sort of died. But you can resurrect them again in the next recollection. So you can see you can resurrect very high level daughters. You can just resurrect like a level 14 daughter and steamroll the game if you really want to, right? But you could do that. So that's something you could do. You just need a resurrection token to do this. So it will make missions later on trivial. At least early game missions, it will make it reasonably trivial because you have a level 14 daughter. So yes, there are some differences in between the first and the second recollection. I have recorded many more parts in the second recollection. As you can see, this is day 8. So I've recorded quite a few parts, but I'm not sure if I want to continue because the game is very similar to the first recollection. There are some differences. I haven't played the third recollection. I don't know if things change in the third recollection. Maybe they do. But what I probably do is rather than continue to record and continue this playthrough, I probably just start streaming the game to show you some of the differences in the first and the second recollection, as well as some of the new updates that I've talked about. So there's a recent update where you can enter a seed to play a seeded run. So every seeded run, if they have the same seed, it's effectively the same. It's sort of a seed. It determines the random factors in the game. For example, the starting position of your daughters, the missions, the enemy types, etc. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this playthrough, and thanks very much for sticking to the end. I do appreciate this, and I will continue to update you guys on this game if there are future updates. If I decide to upload more gameplays, in the second and third recollection, I will definitely do that, and I'll definitely let you guys know. Again, thanks very much for watching this till the end. I do appreciate the view, and I hope you enjoyed the playthrough, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.